everybody.
Hey, Erica.
Looks like we still have several people who are tuning in.
Excellent. Erica, just let me know when you're ready for me to open up and welcome everyone when we've got everybody situated, okay?
Sure. I'm thinking maybe in the next couple of minutes, maybe give people a few more minutes in case they're having some technical difficulties.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I just got into a Zoom meeting.
Erica, you want to give about another minute or so and you're about ready to start?
I keep glancing at my watch. Trying to keep an eye on the participants, see if our list is expanding or not.
Sure.
It seems to have slowed down, so maybe we can go ahead and get started. John, if you don't mind really quickly, I just want to share some guidelines for the public hearing. So first of all, if you could please type your name in the chat so we can record your attendance, that would be great. Please mute your mic if you are not actively speaking. Turning on your video is optional. And if you could please wait until after the presentation of the plan to ask a question, or you can type your question in the chat box. I will be monitoring that. So if you don't feel comfortable speaking up, I can definitely read off that question on your behalf. So now I'm going to turn it over to John.
Thank you so much, Erica, and welcome everyone to the hearing today. It's been a challenging time, but we appreciate everyone being able to meet virtually. So this is the 2022 Annual Action Plan hearing for our federal formula grants, and we'll talk a little more about each of those a little later. I am John Davidson, the Deputy Executive Director of Business Services, and on behalf of the executive team and our Executive Director, Winston Miller, welcome. We're glad you're here. It looks like we have a few members of the public, so please follow those directions that Erica stated earlier, and we're glad you're here. And certainly, we just appreciate everyone's attendance. As we go through this, just a little bit of the way this will work, we are going to have members of KHC as well as the Department for Local Government, talk about this year's plans and the highlights around the annual action plan by funding source. So Mark Williams is with us from DLG, along with Curtis Stauffer from KHC and Sam Thorner. We'll be talking through the specifics of each program and each funding source, and they can answer any specific questions related to that funding source should you have any. So again, I welcome you all and thank you all for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Miss Rebecca Shobe, our Director of Corporate Planning and Accountability, to talk a little bit about the details around the timeline for this plan. But again, I thank you all and have a great day.
Thanks so much, John. So I'm Rebecca Shobe, Managing Director of Corporate Planning and Accountability, and just want to give a few details around the timeline for the 2022 action plan before we get into some more of the program highlights and specifics. So as John mentioned, this is the 2022 iteration of the action plan. And this is going to cover the time period from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. This annual action plan is the Commonwealth application and distribution plan that we submit to Housing and Urban Development, specific to the Office of Community Planning and Development block grant programs, which include Home, ESG, CDBG, Housing Trust Fund, and HOPWA, which some of the program managing directors will speak to in just a few minutes. So in conjunction with Department of Local Government, KHC is also responsible for preparing and submitting this plan to HUD. We will have a draft of the plan posted and available for your public comments for a period lasting from April 1st, 2022 to May 2nd, 2022. We'll be sending out an e-gram just to remind everyone of the public comment period and to also provide a link where you can access the plan. And the plan will be posted on our public website under the Consolidated Planning page. And we will accept comments via email. I'll say the email, but maybe Erica, if you could drop the email in the comments so people can have that. But it's corpplanreport@kyhousing.org. So it's CORPPLAN report@kyhousing.org. Thanks, Erica, for that. So anyway, those are the basics around the timeline. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Mark Williams from Department of Local Government to talk about the CDBG program.
Okay, everyone, good morning. Typically, there's not a lot of changes to our CDB guidelines every year other than the amount of funds and the specific allocations. But we do have some changes this year, pretty significant changes. So I would urge everyone to look at our guidelines when they come up. I'm not sure if they're posted yet or not, but please review them carefully. The first major change we have is in supplemental funding, and this includes community projects, economic development, public facilities. And the reason for the supplemental funding is that all of our projects are experiencing cost overruns due to the increased unit prices and supply availability due to COVID. On the pages further, I'll read to you, set forth the terms and conditions for those eligible as well as required documentation. But if you want to get some supplemental funding for a project that's, obviously run over budget, there are a few things: a written explanation, a copy of the certified bid tabs, minutes from bid openings, final detailed cost estimate, written comments from the contractor on letterhead, etc. So there's some work you have to do, but these funds will be available, and I'm sure can help a lot of people. On page 10 of our guidelines, there's proposed increases in funding. Again, this year, we don't know our 2022 allocation yet, so we're estimating off last year's amount and split of funds. We estimate, based on last year, $26,517,813 to be dispersed. Public facilities will get $8,834,662. Economic development will get $5,532,783. Housing, $3,282,998. Community projects, $6,067,370, and public services, $2,800,000. We also have a change in our application submittal process. We don't need hard copies anymore. We need one complete original via email. We're trying to go electronic as much as we can. So there'll be a change to the physical address, and the email address we would ask everyone to send applications. All correspondence would be dlg.ofg.ky.gov. Again, this will be listed in the guidelines. The application window for community projects, public facilities will begin April 1st, 2022 and run till September 1st, 2022. The application window for economic development, housing, SURF, and public services will run April 1, 2022 to January 31, 2023. And one threshold was also risen for community projects. It used to be a threshold of $500,000, but now you can apply up to $750,000. And once again, call us if you have any questions. That's my summary for today so far. Thank you.
Much, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Now we're going to turn it over to the Kentucky Housing staff, and Curtis Stauffer is going to start us off with the Emergency Solutions Grant.
Thank you very much, Erica, and good morning, everybody. Appreciate everyone's attendance and participation in this public hearing. I'll begin by discussing Emergency Solutions Grants, one of the free federal entitlement programs administered by Kentucky Housing Corporation. Then we'll follow that up with a discussion of housing opportunities with persons of age and the Home Investment Partnerships Program. As has been noted, HUD has not yet released the federal fiscal year 2022 allocations for HUD entitlement funding. The U.S. Congress just passed the federal fiscal year 2022 budget on Thursday, March 10th, and we are not sure when we will receive our actual allocations from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development yet. The Emergency Solutions Grants Program was created when the Homeless Emergency Assistance and Rapid Transition to Housing Act of 2009, or HARTH Act, as amended the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. That revised the Emergency Shelter Grants Program in significant ways and renamed it the Emergency Solutions Grants, or ESG program. The ESG interim rule governing the program took effect on January 4th, 2012, and a final rule still has yet to be issued by HUD. The ESG program provides funding to 1, engage homeless individuals and families living on the street. 2, improve the number and quality of emergency shelters for homeless individuals and families. 3, help operate these shelters. 4, provide essential services to shelter residents. 5, rapidly rehouse homeless individuals and families. And 6, prevent families and individuals from becoming homeless. ESG funds may be used for 5 program components: street outreach, emergency shelter, homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing assistance, and Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS, administration. It also includes funding to support service providers, and governing agencies' administrative activities, which is up to 7.5% of the grantee's allocation. In the current federal fiscal year, or federal fiscal year 2021, KHC was awarded $2,595,355 in ESG funding. We have awarded those funds to 30 subrecipient agencies throughout the balance of state of Kentucky, which is all counties except for Fayette and Jefferson. These funds were awarded by a competitive allocation. ESG funds also support KHC's administrative costs for the program. We plan to hold another competitive application for federal fiscal year 2022 ESG funding this spring. And based on the budget passed by Congress on March 10th, it is anticipated that our federal fiscal year ESG funding award will remain the same or nearly the same as federal fiscal year 2021. I ask everybody to note that HUD also awarded CARES Act ESG funding, known as ESG-CV, totaling just over $23 million to KHC in federal fiscal year 2019. Activities supported by those funds were included in the 2015 to 2019 Consolidated Plan and the Annual Action Plan for federal fiscal year 2019. In summer and fall 2020, KHC awarded ESG-CV funding to subrecipients to support rapid rehousing, emergency shelter, homelessness prevention, street outreach, HMIS, and administrative costs. And we also announced additional awards in 2021 for rapid rehousing, emergency shelter, and street outreach activities based on reallocation of additional funding. As a result of the ESG-CV award, for the first time, ESG rapid rehousing is available throughout the balance of state in all 118 counties. And just to be aware, the 2022 action plan does not govern these funds, and that funding is scheduled to expire in September 2022. We hope to continue to support those rapid rehousing services utilizing an appropriation of funds from the Emergency Rental Assistance 2.0 program awarded by the U.S. Treasury to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And that is what I have for ESG summaries. Now we'd like to move on to housing opportunities for persons with AIDS. And for the current federal fiscal year, again, that's federal fiscal year 2021, KHC was awarded $1,179 in HOPWA formula funding. The federal fiscal year 2021 allocation will be allocated this year via competitive allocation to be launched shortly. KHC typically makes funds available every 3 years through this competitive allocation process to HOPWA awardees. And the last competitive allocation round was held in 2017, with renewals occurring yearly since then. We delayed the onset of the HOPWA competition due to the coronavirus pandemic and the addition via the CARES Act of significant amounts of HOPWA funding that our subrecipients can use. So that's why we have pushed forward the competition for HOPWA funding to this year. After the 2022 competition is awarded, we will plan to continue to award those funds on a renewal basis for the next 3 years. And based on the budget passed by Congress on March 10th, it is anticipated that the balance of state federal fiscal year 2022 HOPWA award will increase by roughly 5% to a little over $1,050,000. But again, those numbers are not finalized. That is only an approximation. HOPWA can provide households with case management and supportive services, tenant-based rental assistance, and short-term mortgage rent and utility payments, also called STRME. Funds also support KHC's administrative costs for the program. Please note that HUD awarded CARES Act HOPWA funding, known as HOPWA-CV, totaling $129,762 to KHC in federal year fiscal 19. Activities supported by those funds were included in the 2015 to 2019 Consolidated Plan and the Action Plan governing federal fiscal year 2019. Those funds were allocated by amending the grant agreements of current HOPWA formula grant recipients, which are AVOL, Heartland Cares, and Matthew 25 AIDS Services. The 2022 Action Plan does not govern those funds. Please also note that HUD awards HOPWA funds outside of the formula allocation process. And these are called competitive HOPWA dollars and are awarded via separate national competition to agencies providing HOPWA services nationwide. These HOPWA competitive grants were re-awarded for an additional 3 years to our renewing grantees in 2019, and we anticipate that HUD will release a competition for these funds shortly. Again, in the past, we've had Volunteers of America Mid-States, AVOL, and Heartland Cares receive awards of these competitive funds. But please note that these competitive funds are not governed by the 2022 annual action plan discussed today. And now we'll move on to the Home Investment Partnerships Program. Created by Congress in 1990, the Home Investment Partnership Program, or shorthand, it's referred to as HOME, provides funding to subrecipients for several types of affordable housing production and rehabilitation activities. KHC administers and monitors the program for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, awarding funds to eligible subrecipients, which include local governments, housing authorities, private developers, and nonprofit housing developers. The purpose of the HOME program is to expand the supply of quality affordable housing for low-income individuals that are at or below 80% of area median income, and very low-income individuals at or below 50% of area median income. The HOME program can be utilized to expand the supply of decent, safe, and sanitary housing through either new construction or rehabilitation of existing structures with forgivable deferred grants. The HOME program's flexibility empowers local communities to design and implement strategies tailored to meet their own needs and priorities. KHC awards HOME funds to developers and subrecipient agencies to support the construction or rehabilitation of rental units, the construction or rehabilitation of homeownership units, as well as tenant-based rental assistance, which helps income-eligible households with rental subsidies for up to 24 months, which can be renewed for longer terms should need continue. Please note that KHC does not fund owner-occupied home repair with HOME funds, instead using Kentucky Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars for that purpose. For the current federal fiscal year 2021, KHC was awarded $13,949,142 in HOME dollars. Based on the budget passed by Congress on March 10th, it is anticipated that Kentucky will receive an increase of 11% in HOME funding to approximately $14,640,000. And again, that is an approximation, and we do not know the actual award and will not know so until HUD alerts us officially. In the current fiscal year, using HUD federal fiscal year 2021 dollars program income and prior year's awards, KHC is awarded $3.528 million to tenant-based rental assistance, $10.6 million to rental production, and $4.234 million to single-family homeownership production. HOME funds also support KHC and subrecipient administrative costs, as well as Community Housing Development Organization, or CHODO, operating grants. The rental production allocations include projects in our pipeline that have been funded through prior year's competitive applications. KHC is currently scoring competitive applications for single-family development funded through federal fiscal year 2021 HOME dollars, as well as Kentucky Affordable Housing Trust Fund allocation. We're anticipating announcing awards for this funding by early April. Another competitive application for single-family homebuyer development will be released in November 2022 and will award federal fiscal year 2022 dollars. KHC will proportionally allocate federal fiscal year 2022 home tenant-based rental assistance dollars on a renewal basis to 2020 awardees on a 2-year renewal grant cycle. Please note that the American Rescue Plan Act passed on March 11, 2021, allocated $5 billion in HOME funds nationwide to provide rental assistance and supportive services, develop affordable rental housing, and help acquire non-congregate shelter to be converted into permanent supportive housing or to be used as emergency shelter to target a very specific population. And they must primarily benefit individuals or households that are or at risk of experiencing homelessness, people who are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, sexual assault, or human trafficking, populations for whom supportive services would prevent the family's homelessness, or those that have a high risk of housing instability. And veterans in any of those populations are prioritized for funding. The Kentucky Balances State was allocated $52,512,704 in these HOME American Rescue Plan Act funds. These funds are not part of the federal fiscal year 2022 action plan discussed today, but rather they were governed by an allocation plan submitted to and approved by HUD as part of the 2021 action plan. We will be using the vast majority of those funds to support the creation of new permanent supportive housing units, with $36 million allocated to rental housing production. That award will also support $7.5 million in supportive services, which will be targeted to residents of those units to be developed, as well as allowing us to continue to provide street outreach services initially supported with ESGCV funding. There'll be a small amount of these HOMOC funds awarded for nonprofit capacity building, as well as using 10% of the award to support our administrative costs. But again, these funds are not governed by this allocation plan and are moving forward under separate allocations. There will be competitive applications being administered by our multifamily program, as well as our homeless programs teams for the use of these funds. I will now turn the presentation over to Sam Thorner with KHC's multifamily division to discuss multifamily's activities with home dollars.
Thank you, Curtis. Good morning, everyone. So home funds, I'm also going to talk about the National Housing Trust Fund as it relates to multifamily programs. So home funds and National Housing Trust funds will be awarded competitively to multifamily projects that have a need for gap financing and that meet the regulatory and programmatic requirements of these respective programs. KHC's policies related to our home and National Housing Trust Fund multifamily programs are available in the multifamily guidelines located on KHC's website. An updated version of these guidelines covering fiscal year 2023 should be posted within the next few weeks. We expect to make home and National Housing Trust funds available in our 2023 9% competitive funding round, for which applications will open in May of 2022 and be due in August of 2022. As we have in past years, we will also expect to make home and National Housing Trust funds available as gap financing and tax-exempt bond transactions, with a notice of funding availability being expected to be published sometime towards the end of this calendar year. Finally, we also anticipate making home funds available as financing for smaller scale, non-credit multifamily projects, with the funding round expected to occur in the early part of 2023. So I think at this point, I'll turn it back over to Erica.
Thank you so much, Mark, Curtis, and Sam, for your information about the various block grant programs. So now we're going to go ahead and open up the floor to any questions or comments. Once again, I will be monitoring the chat box. So if you're not comfortable unmuting yourself, I can definitely ask your question on your behalf. And now just feel free to unmute yourself or put a question in the chat. All right, if there are no questions, and I'm not seeing any in the chat, I do want to share a little bit of information about our public comment period. Just reiterating what Rebecca said at the beginning of the presentation, the 2022 action plan is going to be available for public comment April 1st through May 2nd. We're going to post it on our webpage on the consolidated planning page. And you can email any comments to corpplanreport@kyhousing.org. We have the email on the screen, as well as dropping that email in the chat box. So if you have any questions at all, you can definitely feel free to reach out to us via that email, or you can give any of us a call, and we're happy to direct your questions or comments to the appropriate person. And if there are no further questions or comments, let me chat one more time. All right, I'm not seeing anything. So before I kick it back to John for our closing comments, I just do want to throw out a couple of thank yous to our presenters. Thank you so much for summarizing what we're going to be seeing in this year's plan. And then also I wanted to give a thank you to John for opening and closing. And then finally wanted to give a couple of thank yous to Jeremy Ratliff and Molly Tate, who work behind the scenes to bring us the Zoom room and the live recordings, the live streaming on our YouTube channel. As a note, if you have a colleague or a friend who wanted to attend today, or if they were not able to attend, they can always watch this recording of the hearing on our YouTube channel. So with that, I will give it back to John.
Erica, thank you very much. I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you all very much for your participation. Erica, thank you for coordinating this, and specifically all of our partners, DLG, and appreciate that, and the staff of Kentucky Housing Corporation. You all have a wonderful day, and we appreciate your input, and absolutely look forward to working with you, continuing to work with you all. Thank you. Have a great day.